What's up, sons? It's Blind Rod with Son of a Tech once again, and today I finally have some GPU content for you guys. I know out here at Consensus there's not a ton of GPU mining going on. There's not a lot of proof of work projects, so I was happy to find these guys. I have Chase here with PowerMeta, and he's going to give us the rundown on what that is, because if I look at his shirt, and this is how I found them, on the back, you can't see it from the front, but on the back there's Core AI, and as you guys know, we recently did the guide on how to spin up essentially the the Hive OS images on Core AI to speculative mine cryptocurrencies and so on. So it immediately caught my attention. I wanted to talk to you. So can you tell us what PowerMeta is specifically?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to let you know. So with PowerMeta, what we're doing is we're powering AI and Web3 projects. Essentially anything that needs GPU intensive power, we're there for. So right now we have 3,000 4090s. We have 150 H100s, so a pretty good batch of premium GPU clusters. So with that, we're interested in getting into any hot projects for our node providers. And in this case, node providers being anyone that has GPU power, right? So we have IO.net. We have 2,000 4090s on their system right now and 100 H100s. So what we're looking for is we're trying to fix a problem in the market right now. There's not necessarily a unified market. And what I mean by that is whenever you have a node provider who goes from one blockchain to another to get more rewards, let's be real, node providers are there to make some money, right? Mm-hmm. So seeing how most of these blockchains follow a deflationary model, eventually they're going to need to switch to a new project, right? So with that, we've created a distributed cloud operating system where all they have to do is go to our website or do a one-line terminal command, and they can go from io.net to Alio or whatever else they want to do, right? So the reason why we're doing this is, once again, to create a unified market. We're not here to take anyone's power and keep it for ourselves. We want it to be aggregated on our blockchain and then distributed to all the other ones. So when people need power, they don't need to go to 10 places anymore. They just need to go one. And that's what PowerMeta is about.
Right, so at this time, I guess this would be my question, right? So if I'm going into speculative mining right now, I'll pull up all the marketplaces. If NiceHash has, for example, like the algorithm on it, then I'm going to pull up NiceHash as well, but I'll pull up, right, like Fast AI, I'll pull up Core AI, and I'll start kind of looking at what the prices are, et cetera, on those, and then determine which platform I'm going to go with, and then spin up from there. Do you guys have like a solution from the, I suppose if I understand correct, the OS will be run on the provider side of things, so the person that has the equipment, right?
That is correct, exactly. Okay. That is absolutely
correct. So is there going to be some automation process where they can where it's going to automatically determine the best market to head to, and then allow them to provide their power to that market, right?
That's a fantastic question. And actually with our distributed cloud operating system, it's built into it. So with that, we have machine learning and AI technologies that are validating where is the most value being made, right? Mm-hmm. And in the future, not necessarily right now, we're going to have we're going to have a selection where you can actually just allow our AI to choose what projects you want to run. But for right now, we're just recommending the hot ones, right? So it's pretty clear, io.net, you're making a lot of points. Not cryptocurrency technically yet, but right. Essentially coming out, right? So seeing how we're expecting it to be a 1-to-1 ratio, that's amazing. Maybe 6 months from now, it's Alio. We already have that support for it, so we're able to switch to that one. So to answer your question, there will be an automation process that people, customers and clients can enroll in the near future.
Right, so just so everybody understands, right, like what PowerMeta is the middleman between the platform or the provider of the equipment, right, and the processing power, right, and then the person that's utilizing it, right?
Exactly that, right? Like I said earlier, why go 10 places when you can go one? We're trying to unify this market. So we happen to have a lot of GPUs ourselves, right? Okay. But at the same time, there's a lot of GPUs.
So that's what I was going to ask too, because you had mentioned the amount of GPUs you have.
Yes.
Is that you, or is that the amount of GPUs deployed through your system?
Fantastic question. So 2,000 of them are our ours. For the 4090s. We have 3,000 on our testnet, 80 on specifically right now, not released yet, not the mainnet. But we're just verifying that our work credentials are working good, our proof of power, and a few other, our DFA algorithm. Just ensuring that everything's good so that when the mainnet launches, there's no kind of bad actors getting away with anything.
So let's talk, so is that PowerMeta, is that under, I guess I need to understand all of I'm trying to understand all the pieces. So PowerMeta is the operating system. Or no,
PowerMeta is the company, all right? That is a company that happens to have a lot of...
that has a lot of processing power and GPUs. Yes. Under that, you're going to have an OS and then also a blockchain.
Essentially, but just to clarify that, PowerMeta is not going to necessarily be like in charge of the blockchain.
Okay.
We're going to governance, right? So with that, we happen to want to solve this problem, and we're starting it, we're spearheading it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be pretty open to the community to decide what they want to do, right? As it should be with blockchains. But yeah, as far as the operating system, we use that for the blockchain to be able to change from blockchain A to B very quickly. It helps out with that. It has heterogeneous management, so it doesn't matter if it's a array, cluster, container, physical machine, virtual machine, like it has the compatibility for it, right? But we also use that for our other things on PowerMeta, like AI Factory. We sell GPUs people can buy and also switch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you yourself as well are a marketplace for power too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we have a great relationship with NVIDIA, with vendors, so we're able to get 4090s pretty quickly. Just because of how many we already have, we seem to be pretty close to the front of the line on that.
Well, the GPU acquisition is important, but also there's as you know, there's a lot more infrastructure that goes into that. Even at the base level, for the nerds out there, how are you configuring these systems now? Because there's been a shift, obviously, GPU mining. If we talk about mining, right, and then leveraging GPUs to earn revenue, which has kind of been the whole focus of my channel since 2016 or so, with mining Ethereum, you know, you would have a configuration of a system that would have like a little Celeron in there with an 8 gig stick of memory, right, and then you would have like 14 GPUs hooked up to that single system. That's not really where we're headed in the future here. I think with these build outs now, as far as mining farms go, or as far as like compute for GPU power in general, right? With the shift to AI, the trend is to have, you know, more PCIe lanes available to the GPUs, right? 8 to 16 if you can, right? And then having ample amount of memory, like system memory, right? Anywhere from 128 to 256 and up, or whatever it may be, depending on what the configuration is per system, right? So, and then obviously a beefy CPU that's going to provide all those lanes to the GPU. So what does like a typical build out for y'all's systems look like now? Yeah,
so we have quite a few, but we're talking about premium GPU clusters, right? So with that, you can have anywhere from, well, first of all, the servers themselves have 8 GPUs, 8 4090s,
right.
Okay? Then from there, the grid is just depending on location. Hey, do we have 100 at that service center? Do we have 200? Whatever the case is. As far as the memory, we have 128 gigs. And the PCEs, I can't necessarily remember right now, but of course I can give you that information later on, so we can get
what kind of CPU is it running in there?
I believe it's
an Epic.
You know, I don't remember.
Don't know?
Right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but hey, I can also give you that information next week. Yeah.
Well, because there's also been this. I know. Are you familiar with Octominer?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so they had kind of done a little bit of a shift and come out with the X99 Octominer, which was supposed to kind of fill that space, but they went with an old CPU platform. So they went with the old X99. That was to keep costs low or whatever and move people over.
What you're saying. Yeah.
So the base specs look good, 128 gigabytes of memory, you got a lot of threads and enough lanes to support 8 GPUs, but you're still a little limited on the processing side of things, right?
As far as the throughput with it. Okay,
yeah, so it's just, I'm always interested in how people are building those things out. So if you can get that info to me, I'd be
100%. I'll make sure that you just have it so you know exactly what the situation is, right?
And then I'll just kind of overlay it in the videos or whatever it is.
That sounds great.
We'll go from there. Cool. So it seems like you guys are doing a lot, right? It seems like you could get a little bit distracted by each one or all these pieces. How big is your team and what does that look like?
Fantastic question. So when we're talking about our software engineering team, we have 27 of us, including me.
Okay.
So we got a pretty good team, right? Seeing how we're working on this blockchain, it's a pretty big task to say the least, right? So what we're really focusing on right now is ensuring security and also ease of access, right? Because when we're talking about Web3 right now, the issue we have with getting from Web 2 or Web 2 consumers to Web 3 is it's not as convenient as it should be, right? You either got to set up a MetaMask, you got to write down your seed phrase and whatnot, right? So we're really just trying to make sure that anyone who is interested in Web 2, even if they don't know what Web 3 is, hopefully they're able to use our system, right? So that's why we're focusing on this distributed cloud operating system with a whole bunch of proofs for security. We use ZK snarks. We're in the thick of it. So yes.
Okay, so then so the blockchain will be proof of work. Let's talk about this a little bit.
Great question. So it's going to be two things. Okay. So you're going to have proof of power first.
Okay, so Varus. Similar to it, right? So you're going to have 50% mining, 50% staking?
It's going to be mainly mining, but also they have the option. You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
and then,
right.
So on the mining side, because that's the side I care about, I think everybody else, you stakers are lazy. On the mining side of things, what is that hashing algorithm going to be?
Gotcha. So don't necessarily have which hashing algorithm we're going to be doing. I'll also have that for next week for you.
Okay.
Just not on top of my head.
Well, it better be ASIC resistant.
We'll be good on that.
Okay.
For sure.
So, and GPU friendly. That's a hard one to do.
Hey, we're going to be fine on that. So just to clarify a little bit more on this proof of power. So we're first validating that, of course, that the node is online, right? We have something called a DFA, device fingerprint algorithm. All that is doing is it's ensuring that the hardware ID is what it's supposed to do, or what it's supposed to be. So, for example, it checks and makes sure that it was registered as a 4090, and it is a 4090, and it's in working condition. Like it's not failing, right? So then from there, we have something called a work certificate. And what that work certificate does is once you say, hey, I want to provide power as a node provider, you're providing power to an application. Let's just say io.net for this example. What it'll do is a work certificate every 60 seconds is going to send a little packet, and it's going to say, hey, what are you doing? And it's going to verify that it's actually doing the proper thing with that zero knowledge proof that we just talked about a second ago.
So for this operating system, let's say I'm a provider, like I have a mining farm, maybe like a couple hundred GPUs or something like that personally. So let's say I have a couple hundred GPUs, I want to deploy your OS, right?
Yes.
And I can do that without permission or permissionless, or how does that work?
Great question. First of all, it's not open source yet. It is going to be open source. Once we launch the mainnet, we're going to open source it a few months after. We just really
mainnet of the blockchain.
Mainnet of the blockchain.
Separate from the OS, because like I said, I think I'm trying to make sure we distinguish all of the pieces here. So
fair, very fair.
You're going to launch the open source code for the OS post launch of the blockchain.
Yes, and the reason why is we think our distributed cloud operating system is really amazing and whatnot, but at the same time, when we're talking about Web3, it's about sharing information, right? So if someone wants to make another distributed cloud operating system with what we have started to create, for sure, they will have the ability to do that. But we also just want to ensure that we release it as good as possible, so hopefully we're set from there.
What OS is the operating system based off of?
Golang.
Or what kernel?
So it's made with Golang.
It's just all in Golang.
Golang,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
So if you want to deploy it to your system, what does that process technically look like?
Technically, very easy. So essentially, all you got to do is first you register on our website, adeon.ai. Say, hey, I want to be a node provider. The minimum requirement is that you have 24 4090s or higher in IDC. So we're, once again, premium GPU clusters, right? Business to business, essentially. Then from there, once we validate that your power is premium, then from there, we're going to send you a one-line terminal command. It will download a Docker file, and then from there, you're set and ready to go.
So you'll have to already have a base operating system on your machines already, though, for that terminal command?
You'll have to have a NVIDIA container toolkit.
Got it.
And then
okay,
from
okay.
there,
Right.
you'll be able to have that.
Got
So
you.
yeah, great
Okay.
question.
So that's going to be okay. So that's more like data center focused type deployment process. Got
Yeah,
it.
and then that also brings up another thing because there are some blockchains that essentially don't work with Docker containers. Just letting y'all know. So with that, why we also made a DFA, that device fingerprint algorithm, is let's say we have a 4090 from two different people. You have a 4090, I have a 4090 for this example, and you want to go to io.net. Well, io.net does not necessarily work with that. So how are we powering io.net with DMOS, or our distributed cloud operating system? Well, how we're doing that is we have a mining pool specifically for io.net, and seeing how we have the DFA and we see how the power that's being run by that 4090, we can switch it with one of the ones that are in our mining pool, and then our AI technology is able to use your GPU for another project that actually does work with a Docker container for somebody else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just a little bit more technical,
Yeah,
but
sweet.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a pretty nice system that we're developing, and we're very excited to see where it goes.
So this isn't something that like a home miner can necessarily participate in, though, unless they have, because you're talking about entry into that is high level compute. So we're going to need 24 4090s at a minimum to currently participate within this, right?
That is absolutely correct. Right, so we are talking about business to business right now, and first and foremost, if y'all don't meet that threshold, it doesn't mean there's not something out there for you, right? Our partnership with io.net, I 100% recommend y'all go through them because there are funds to be made. Right now, if you happen to do have that, then you have the ability to use our distributed cloud operating system, and you'll be able to just go to that next adventure just very easily, and that's what we're hoping for.
And so then if I had the 24 4090s, I put them on your system, and what is the cut that you guys take out of all of that?
Fantastic question. So if you're not purchasing the GPUs from us, the cut is your cut, because what happens is you're getting 80 on token once the mainnet launches. You're going to be getting 80 on tokens. Technically, you'll get triple rewards. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're going through io.net through 80 on. Okay, so of course you're getting io.net rewards, just like if you weren't using us. You get a reward for providing power from our proof of power. And then the work certificate also gives you another reward because you're providing proper work to an application. So how are we making money off of this? We have some other things we make money off of, but also if the blockchain is successful, we are successful. And that's where we make our money.
Okay, got it. So then we have to talk about tokenomics for the blockchain. Have you guys figured that out yet?
Yes, so of course this could change, but as far as what we're looking at right now, 65% of the reward will be to node providers, because we really do care about making a community where all the node providers go to one place and then distribute their power other places, right?
Okay.
15% to early investors, and then we're going to have about 5% to community events, like airdrops and whatnot. Really just like get our name out. The rest of that will be to validator nodes, if we're familiar with that. That's essentially Alliance node is what we're calling it.
So I thought there was going to be a mining aspect to that, though, as well. Is there not then? Hashing algorithm or any of that?
So we'll be able to support mining projects. Okay, so for example, like KAS.
But the chain itself is going to be proof of stake for validator nodes?
Okay, it's for validator. No, not for validator nodes. For the application, just to clear this up a little bit.
Okay.
Let's say that you want to mine KAS, right? Okay. So with that, you decide that you want to mine KAS. You don't have to do any staking. Okay, you're set and ready to go. If you go into io.net or a different company that requires staking, you need to put up the staking that blockchain has.
Right, but I'm talking about for your specific
proof
blockchain.
Proof of power, 100%.
Well, because when we're talking, and I wanted the tokenomics for that specifically. And so I'm trying to figure out where the mining rewards are coming from. If we got 65% going to node operators, is what you said, right?
Yeah.
And then you got the 5% for the
community.
Community.
Yeah, and then you got 15 for early investors.
15 for early investors.
And then you have your alliance node, which is also known as a validator node.
Okay, and then there's still the mining portion.
The mining portion is in the node provider portion.
Got it, okay. So is that actually processing, is that hashing algorithm in that node provider portion actually processing any of those transactions, or is that all purely on the validator side of things? Like, And then what are the emissions?
Gotcha. Okay, so we have our proof of power and we have our work certificate. So the work certificate, whenever that's happening, you're getting rewards with that. You have a chance to win, right?
Okay.
With the proof of power, you just are constantly giving power to the network, so you also get rewards that way. As far as emissions, we're going to be coming out with that information, but we're pretty new, so we don't necessarily have that, but I can also give that to you pretty quickly, too.
Okay. Yeah, so it would be interesting to see what those emissions are.
For sure.
It does seem like, just to be completely blunt, a lot of people in blockchain kind of look down upon any sort of early investor allocation of funds.
Yeah.
But you guys are a little bit more privatized, so I guess you would consider this chain specifically, like even though it will be open source and have its own governance model and everything, you're still giving some of those funds to like investors, right? So
that is correct, right? Because when we're talking about it, it could be Filecoin, it could be IO.net, it could be an individual person, right? But it's important that we get the funds to make sure that this community can be in one place, right? Because if we keep going where we're at right now, we're just going to keep creating more blockchains, we're going to keep creating more projects, and we're going to keep diversifying where our power is, right? And it's just going to get more and more tough because every 3.5 months, the compute power that's needed for these AI models is doubling. It's insane.
Now, do you think that there actually is a lot of AI being utilized on these platforms? Because just from my experience of deploying, machines to both Vast and Clore, for example, I put them out there as like I call them honeypots, right? Like hash rate honeypots. And I go through and I take a look at what the command lines are, what containers are running, what Docker containers are pulling, all that sort of stuff, and running on my machine. And that's how I find early mining projects. And I've noticed a lot of what it seems like these, tagged AI providers are actually doing is really just mining cryptocurrency for the most part. So is it really AI workloads? How much of it do you think is actually AI workloads versus just people mining cryptocurrency on it?
That's a great question. I think we're at the phase right now with AI that it's going to get more and more persistent with how much is being used. I completely agree with what you just said, because once again, we go back to node providers. Where's the money being made, right? And it usually is with mining, right? But even at that conference, the Austin Consensus that we're at, you see quite a bit of companies, specifically AI, that are emerging, saying, "Hey, we need power." We've had quite a few conversations, so we're excited to see where those conversations go. But for right now, I'd say probably. Man, I would say even 80% mining, right? 20% AI. That sounds about right.
That's about how I feel about it. Because that's like my joke on the channel is I'm like, AI is just code word for I'm mining cryptocurrency right now. And very few people even realize that that's what's going on, right? So you got all these new projects. They're like, oh, we're focused on AI. But even Clore, you go on Clore, like they literally have an image, Docker image, like built into their marketplace to just pull Hive OS and load it onto one of the rigs, right? Like right out of the box. And so it's like it's clear that that's a pretty large portion of that current power. And then the follow-up question to that would be like, from the AI perspective, like let's say you are running large AI models, but they have breaks in them, right? So you run that compute power, you finish the solver, but let's say you have another 20% of your contract left over or something like that, right? Or the time. I think an interesting solution there is being able to help those AI companies, fully utilize or maximize all of their power rentals and maybe have it auto kick over to mine some sort of cryptocurrency or something like that, right? To where it's not just wasting the power.
And I'm glad you brought that up because with our distributed cloud operating system, we have an intelligence model that is it's in its learning phase, of course, right now. But that's what we're wanting to do with it, right? There's a lot of right now there's a lot of things that are not efficient with GPU power, right? So being able to switch from one project to another if the workload is done is somewhere where also it means that the node providers are making more money, right? So that would also be with what we talked about earlier as far as us being able to have a user click a button and say, hey, you know what? Give me the best incentives, right? So that's being trained right now. We expect it's going to take a year because I mean, it's a lot.
What kind of analytics do you guys pull for, say, like big AI models and that sort of stuff as far as GPU utilization, right? Because on a GPU, you're going to have memory utilization, core utilization, all that sort of stuff, and there's leftover resources a lot of times within that, right? Where you might be maxing out the core, but you got 90% availability on the memory, and really maximizing that total usage of the GPU, so you're not sitting there, you know, basically not using a portion. Do you guys pull any analytics for that and try to, you know, maximize that sort of workload out, or make sure that the GPU's hitting 100% utilization?
Great question. So we do have a perception engine. So our node providers are able to actually go onto our website and they can see by individual GPU how it's performing. Now, as far as being able to tweak it to where it's 100% on everything, not there yet. Definitely a goal that we want to go for.
Okay.
But yes, that is also going to be in the future because we're talking about efficiency, right? If we're just using half of a 4090, then what's going on? Like,
right.
we have a problem there. So
I think one of the biggest realizations that came after the Ethereum move to proof of stake, right? Was this need to start double mining, triple mining, you know, fully utilizing the GPU to really maximize that revenue. Whereas before it was like, just throw it on Ethereum, like, underclock the core and let it go, right? So that's like a shift that's changed a lot, where you have, you know, you might be mining a core intensive algorithm over here and then a memory intensive algorithm over here, and kind of trying to max out the GPU. And I'm just wondering, like, from the perspective of AI workloads, I suppose, if that utilization could be a similar status or a similar thing, right? Like, let's say the AI workloads, heavy compute instructions, and it's running off of the GPU core, and it's not utilizing the memory because you know, also shove in there a memory intensive mining algorithm to then maximize that revenue off of that individual piece of equipment, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's a lot to it, and when it gets down to the point, we hope in the future it can be as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
But hopefully sooner rather than later.
What is it? A society's success or whatever is purely or directly correlated to how efficient they are at using power, right?
I like that quote.
Something like that. I can't remember exactly who said it or anything.
We'll say it's from you, okay?
Yeah, we'll just say that. So tell everybody where you're from, or where they can find you, where they can find out more about PowerMeta.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Once again, my name's Chase Donahoe. I'm the CTO with PowerMeta. Go to adeon.ai if you want to be a node provider. You just need more information on our new blockchain, or of course our main website, PowerMeta the company, which will be PowerMeta.market.
I'm jealous of how many GPUs they got, but
we got a few. Hey, we'll be in touch. We got you. Okay.
They got more than me right now, guys. I got to step my game up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you check out all the links down in the description below, and I will see you next Tuesday.